Hello, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for July 27th, 2024. It's Season 3, Episode 209. I am Mayor Watt, and that is the visualizer for the Sentient AI from the future.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens, or actually, good day.
Yeah, today is, we're doing today what we normally do on Sunday, and that is all of the shows. Those shows being Non Sequitur News, and then we're not going to do Reality Hacker because we did it yesterday, but it's going to post tomorrow. And then we're going to do Wanted and Warcrafters, the Continuity Report, Technology Today, and Four Wheel Tech, and Rapid Fire, although the Sentient AI has an assignment and will probably bow out. Anyway, and then next week is going to be really odd. So we kind of go radio silent this coming week. But that's okay. Everything is powered by ohmTown.com. So if you want all of these articles that we're talking about, you can click on the show notes. Click the links in the show notes. That'll take you over to ohmTown. You can read the little snippet just like we do. Follow the links that you find are interesting. That'll take you to the source for all of our news. And again, just go over there, become a citizen, much like ohmTown is right there. Well, that's way over there, and I can't reach there. Anyway, because my hand will fall off. See if I try. Oh, anyway. Hey, I forgot. Today we're going to be talking about Assassin's Creed Olympics opening ceremony. Smaller crew size due to automation, I say. Star Wars miniature sells for $1.55 million. Activision experimented on Call of Duty players. Egyptian artworks below Nile. The little white tables of Tesla. That actually has canon here in ohmTown. Details you missed during the opening ceremony. Kind of indicative of modern events, it seems. All of this makes sense when we get to it. GTA 6 has a strike exemption, the craziness of contracts. And finally, writers' earnings fell $600 million due to strike. Normally, I would go, all of that's going to be brought to you by ohmTown.com, so here's our intro, but I mashed the button that runs the intro already, so production values. So let's just get into today's articles. The first article is over in Warcrafters, which is one of the shows that we put together. It'll be later today. The 2024 Olympic Games opening ceremony goes full Assassin's Creed parkour on Paris's rooftops. The author writes, I didn't know the 2024 Olympic Games were starting today or that they were in France, so the author was extra surprised when the opening ceremonies looked like a scene out of a classic Assassin's Creed game.
I mean, this sounds interesting. I didn't see the opening ceremony.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. What's interesting is I've been interacting with other streamers, and nobody really cares. So I think out of all of the people that have been talking about, I'd say anything, we've been saying the most about the Olympic Games, mainly because of what they had to sleep on. And somebody else brought up the fact that they ordered 300,000 condoms, the most ever purchased. And based on interviews that I've watched, the reason why so many people, or why they're going through so many condoms, is because who isn't going to take home a grip of condoms from the 2024 Summer Olympics? You can only get them during the Olympics.
Like a logo or something on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing and it's kind of surreal. You're like, well, whoa. I understand summer games, but this is a little different. Anyway. So Ubisoft's hooded icon helped deliver the flame to kick off the 2024 games in France. And we're not talking about Snoop Dogg, because he also carried a very large torch. So Ethan Gash, I think, or Gak. I'm not sure how they pronounce their name, their last name. From Kotaku.com, put the article together. And if you've never heard of Assassin's Creed, you'll have to go and look it up, really, because it's the same kind of world building, but you basically go through, you go back in time to facilitate changes to the timeline, but there's more to it. But it's a historically aligned game of dispatching various people. So apparently everyone else was too. The opening ceremony for the year's games kicked off in Paris on July 26th and running through August 11th. Featured everything you need to know about French culture, including soccer star. It's Zinedine Zidane, a beheaded queen, and what appeared to be a mysterious revolutionary era figure in a hood leaping off rooftops. All it was missing was a giant baguette. So stereotypes of stereotypes. So
yeah, that's really hyping on the French location.
Yeah. Yep. There are a bunch of links that are embedded in the article, but I don't allow that. So it is what it is. I don't want to improperly grab content from somebody.
Right. Oh, okay. I didn't get the connection. I mean, obviously the publisher is French, so.
And so what's weird really is like pulling that into the actual, I mean, it's Assassin's
Oh, I know
Creed.
why they did it.
Huh.
Because they've just announced in the last maybe week that they're going to have Olympic esports starting soon. And I bet this is kind of the getting people ready for that.
Interesting. I suppose so. Ubisoft is a French company, appeared to tease the surprise cameo of its history defending killer in a couple of posts earlier today, one winking at the official Olympics account, another sharing a trailer for Assassin's Creed Unity, the one that takes place in France during the French Revolution. So, hey, nothing like hyping up. Never mind. Anyway, the author says that they're not in a position to judge. Maybe those naysayers would have felt differently if the assassin had jumped off a restored Notre Dame cathedral into a giant cart of hay. Because that's actually something that you can do to hide from your enemies. So if the Olympic Games in France have you pining for a getaway you can't afford, Assassin's Creed Unity isn't the worst alternative. And I think that's why a lot of people like watching people play games or playing games. They want to get away, which is why we don't talk about certain things here in ohmTown. It isn't to say that it isn't aggregated into ohmTown. It's just something that we don't talk about regularly. I might make a snarky, colorful offhand comment, but anyway. My soapbox is sociological, not political. So let's keep charging through or assassinating all of these topics. See what I did there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of a way to work Creed in, though.
No. Well, yeah, that's true. It's harder. That's a harder one. So the next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Top pilots union sounds alarm as regulators consider smaller crew sizes because, you have to have record profits. You can't put more money into your operation. No.
You wouldn't want to have more safety.
Right. Yeah. Basically, fewer people doing more with less. And I say it's because of automation. There was just now a fly-by-wire automatic pilot that can take off announced. So you don't really need a pilot anymore. Pretty soon we're going to be able to do Uber jets and they'll just swing by, pick us up. They fly really slow with a door open, ironically, and you can just jump in. But Yeah, aerospace giants have been accused of putting profits ahead of safety as officials consider cutting the minimum number of pilots required on commercial flight decks from 2 to 1. Look, 50% more profits instantly.
We saw how well that went in the railroad industry.
Oh yeah, sure. Why don't we just stop looking at them to maintain them? We can just go, well, we have them on a plan, so we don't have to look. Yeah, sure, sometimes the bolts fall out, but it's not us that are falling prey to this. It's all of you customers. So the move, which is currently being evaluated by the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, or EASA, would weaken standards to the lowest common denominator, the world's largest union of pilots has warned. Yeah, you'd have one person flying the plane, and if all hell breaks loose, there isn't anybody there that can take over.
Right, isn't that the whole purpose of having two?
Redundant systems, yes. On particularly long flights, or not, late flights, or a bad day, they could not feel well, and still, because they have to fly to make money, they don't call in sick, so they get sick in the air, or they become delirious, or all kinds of things you want to fail over. I think that this is asinine. So the article's over at theguardian.com. The author of this is Michael Senato. The thing that I don't get about jets, airplanes in general, and a lot of sophisticated technology is we're in the 21st century. Why are there so many freaking buttons, switches, and levers in a modern device?
Why doesn't it have like a button that says go or something?
Right.
Or whatever the equivalent is for flying, right? I'm thinking of that scene on the deck of Star Trek, right? Like whatever the go word is.
Yeah.
And then it's like up,
engage,
down, basic things that it needs to do. But why do you have to flip 15 levers to drop, say, 100 feet? Why can't you just be like drop 100 or something?
Yeah, why hasn't it evolved into something beyond what seems to be 1940s equipment? I mean, when you look at these devices, you see all of these freaking knobs and switches and levers and buttons, and I think of Airplane. In the scene, there is a scene in there where the guy kind of freaks out because he's like, we all have our buttons and our levers and our switches. He starts swirling out of control, downward spiral, flat spin even. Anyway, they say this threat is not something that is 10, 15, 20 years away. It would weaken the standards to the lowest common denominator, basically removing it all the way down to 1. Eventually, pilots are going to get removed because they are the weakest link, really, the costly burden. They're required, they're constrained, they're highly skilled, so they demand a lot of money.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think there are a lot of pilots out there.
Correct. Yeah.
Or at least that meet whatever the requirements are.
Yeah, and some come from military because they are pilots, and then they want to get out of the military, and they end up flying conventional planes.
Right, commercial.
Yeah, commercial planes. Sorry, yeah. So the U.S. has the safest aviation record in the world. We need to improve the standard for everybody, not just go to the lowest common denominator. And maybe safest, but why are we hedging towards not?
Well, I know. Are we really trying to disrupt those rankings? And what is that data based on? Does that include 2024? Because I don't know.
We're still safe. They're not dropping out of the sky entirely. They're just dropping out of the sky precariously.
They just dropped to 150 feet or whatever.
Right. It's almost
multiple
like
times.
It's an Olympic sport, to see how close to the...
What would it be called? Like acrobatic aviation or something?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that sounds more like those old-timey air shows.
The spontaneous landing. So ESA is looking at the safety of extended minimum crew operations, or MCO, where one pilot would leave the flight deck to rest during long flights, leaving one pilot at the helm. Many long flight currently staff 3 pilots on the flight deck so that pilots can alternate rest in 8-hour shifts. The reduction was proposed by aircraft manufacturers Airbus and Dassault. ESA is also investigating the safety of single pilot operations for cargo flights. And it's all about risk management. I don't want to rely on just one pilot. I want more. I want 2 minimum, 3 on any flight. One can go rest. There's always a backup. Always a backup. And I don't think that I'm going to get one of the flight attendants to go charging down the aisle and say, oh, the captain is incapacitated. I'll take the helm.
Right, or just like when they need medical, right? Does anybody know how to fly a plane? Oh, goodness.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Airplane all over again. Anyway, then the article kind of devolves into other situations with technology being helmed by one person, like boats, planes.
Right. Well, they also talk about a 0-person operation,
Trains.
which I thought was interesting that was in here. And they compare 0 to 1 as being equivalent, which isn't saying much for me.
Right.
The capability or whatever of the pilots, but I know it's all about whether the technology is sophisticated.
Yeah, and we got to stop putting people or profits over people. You got to stop. What I was originally going to say was we got to stop putting people at risk for profit. So,
right. But I think both of those work. And I have to say, I always appreciate the Guardian articles. I think they always go into a good level of detail. It's not just surface information like we see from some news outlets.
Yep, that's why I aggregate them. All right, let's keep going. The next article is over in the Continuity Report, which is another one of our shows. Star Wars Starfighter miniature sells for $1.55 million, and Princess Leia's bikini goes for $175,000 at auction. A filming miniature of the Y-Wing Starfighter helmed by Gold Leader, who aided Luke Skywalker in destroying the Death Star in 1977's Star Wars A New Hope, sold for a whopping $1.55 million on Friday at Heritage's July entertainment auction. Another highlight of the collection was a Princess Leia gold bikini costume from Jabba the Hutt's set. I wear a gold thong, and I will easily sell you that gold thong for $170. You know what? I'll give you a deal, $150,000. Okay.
Maybe you should put it up for auction on ohmTown.
ohmTown, yeah, ohmTown auctions. Yeah. All you need is a check for $150,000 and an appointment with your psychiatrist. So you get some therapy afterward. So Carolyn Giardina over at Variety.com put the article together. I guess that's the gold bikini. Let's see, $1.55 million for the Y-Wing Starfighter, but apparently not Skywalker's. So
no, which I thought was interesting. Presumably that one would command a higher price.
Yeah. Let's see, Return of the Jedi from Jabba the Hutt's scenes in 1983's Return of the Jedi sold for $175 million. That's the bikini. The ensemble includes 7 pieces from ILM's chief sculptor, Richard Miller's collection: a bikini brassiere, bikini plates, hip rings, an armlet, and bracelet. So I guess that. I don't know. There's other stuff in this article, but you can go and check it out. Should I wear that?
I would advise against that.
Really? On Continuity Report? That'll be the new set design?
Oh, no.
Moving on. Next article's over in Warcrafters. Yet another one of our shows. Activision Blizzard, or Activision. Let me just rephrase that. Activision secretly experimented on 50% of Call of Duty players by decreasing skill-based matchmaking and determined players like skill-based matchmaking, even if they don't know it. So if you ever find yourself in the middle of an argument about Call of Duty and want to toss a tank of gasoline on the fire, recite these 4 letters. SBMM, or skill-based matchmaking, is the invisible system by which Call of Duty, as well as most modern multiplayer games, match you with similarly skilled players so that every matchup is as fair as possible. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know this was done.
Yeah, but I think that it's kind of... It relies on the stats that are generated, not necessarily the actual skill of the player. You could have some bad days or whatever. I suppose it's all based on consistency and statistics. So if you have the same number of kills, it doesn't necessarily embody the player itself, but it's the data results at the end of each game. And the reason why I say it like that is you could be horrible but lucky, consistently lucky. You can make irrational decisions on a battlefield in Call of Duty, eliminating the enemy, and end up with the same results as somebody who is tactically efficient and highly effective, doing less moves, etc., risking other players at a lower rate, etc. But the skill-based matchmaking isn't based on the holistic understanding of the player. It's the win-loss ratio, is my understanding. So it says sound like a win-win for all involved, but there's a legitimate argument against a matchmaker that only cares about high competition. A faction of Call of Duty players argue that it's not always fun. So Morgan Park over at PC Gamer put the article together. It says the experiment was just one discovery of a 25-page paper covering how skill-based matchmaking works in Call of Duty. Now I'm gonna have to hunt down that paper. The new paper, a 25-page document titled "The Role of Skill in Matchmaking," is as impressive as it is jarring. On one hand, it's a little funny that Activision is treating the topic with tact and seriousness, posing such questions as "What is skill?" That's my... If you're going to do skill-based matchmaking, you have to know what skill is. And if it's nothing more than the end-game statistics, that isn't skill. That just happens to be based on their competition at the end of that event. That's the data. It doesn't necessarily translate directly.
Right. No, it absolutely doesn't.
So,
but I guess it's an objective way of measuring it, but it's just not...
It's not
holistic. It may lead to weird results, right?
Yeah, it's not holistic. So they say posing such questions as what is skill and mapping kills per minute and skill buckets on graphs, when we all know that naysayers will probably just say that SBMM still trash LMAO. So skill-based matchmaking is still trash, laughing my ass off, and move on. Now, I think it's founded in science and statistics, but not a holistic understanding of somebody's skill and or potential. Some of this ground has been covered before. We finally learned for sure back in April that Call of Duty's matchmaker, above all else, values finding matches quickly over ensuring it's perfectly balanced. There are a couple, what is it called? Let me pull it up real quick. The Destiny Community Podcast kind of talks about matchmaking and stuff from time to time. They're actually a really fun podcast if you're interested in that thing. They also stream on Twitch. They're called DCP, or Destiny Community Podcast. So the experiment ran in Modern Warfare 3 in early 2024. Discreetly, Activision toned down the skill in skill-based matchmaking for 50% of Northern American Modern Warfare 3 population. The results: over 90% of the players with toned down SBMM played less Call of Duty after the change, with the top 10% of skilled players not as affected. The paper goes on.
Right? They're still winning.
Over 90% of players with toned down SBMM played less Call of Duty after the change.
I mean, doesn't that mean that you're potentially going up against somebody with better stats or whatever, and so you're losing and you're getting frustrated with the game.
So,
and if you're a really good player, you're going to win, because you might be up against somebody who's not as strong.
So, but why did people stop playing? That's not really enumerated here. Why did they play less?
No, it's not. We need more detail, but that's what I think happened.
So it says the paper goes on to confirm what has, to the author, always been the most obvious reason to have skill-based matchmaking, which is random matchmaking primarily benefits really good players and disproportionately sucks for average skilled players, except supposedly as you get better, you trickle up that scale. But if you don't ever get pushed, because your skill is always tied to the same skilled
people.
Well, yeah,
you're not going to improve, right?
Right. So it says the use of kill streaks and increased kills per minute and score per minute shows that the wider lobby skill percentage disparity is disproportionately leveraged by the top 10% of players. It says, unfortunately, this increased performance comes at the cost of greater impact to the much larger 30% of the population toward the bottom of the skill distribution. So average skill percentile disparity rises, resulting in tougher matches for lower skilled players, and lower skilled players play less, resulting in a shifting lower skill bracket, and that becomes recursive. So you don't necessarily, well, it's what we said. They are arguing that they play less because they're dominated by higher skilled players. So the article goes into greater depth, but we'll just kind of jump over this because at the end of the day, skill-based matchmaking pins people together based on the interpretation of the skill at the end game stats, maybe even throughout the stats, but at different weights, because you could have a streak, but that isn't because it's skill, it's that the other players weren't as lucky, because it's pure chaos in some of these games. Not to mention that for me, it's a lot of recursive grind work. It's the same battlefield. There's no dynamic other than the chaos ensued by the people that play it.
Right. Well, at least then you want to be winning, or at least feeling like you did a decent job.
Yeah.
If you're doing the same type of thing over and over again.
Yep. So I suppose if you're into this, they need greater minutia, or fidelity, I should say, in what it means to be skill based. Because total match kills doesn't really mean much. It just means that you pulled the trigger often enough to eliminate the enemy that was downrange, and those people didn't get out of the way. But the statistics, if everybody, as much as I hate saying it, if everybody is playing with the same data, then everybody is bound by the same data. Some people will ultimately come across as being better. The only way to get better, though, is to play somebody better than you and learn how to be better, aka get good. All right, let's keep going. Next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Archaeologists find ancient Egyptian artworks hidden below Nile waters. The underwater finds include inscriptions and depictions of various ancient Egyptian pharaohs, according to researchers. The article is over at Newsweek, put together by Aristos Georgiou. There is no deck statement, but yeah, I don't think that this is it. The video is never matching the thing. They have a picture of a location, but it's from iStock. A picture of the Aswan Reservoir, which actually
I mean, at least it's Egypt, right? But no, it doesn't directly relate.
Yeah, so the Aswan Dam is man-made. The reservoir basically flooded an area that had numerous archaeological remains. This has been done in other countries as well, where there is historically significant regions that are contained under the water. The only way to find them is to actually hire archaeologically,
like underwater archaeologists or something.
underwater archaeologists, so divers that are skilled in archaeology. So the construction of the dam, which was completed in 1970, flooded an area of land containing these archaeological remains. The research identified several underwater rock carvings and inscriptions, including depictions of various ancient Egyptian pharaohs, like Amenhotep III, who reigned from roughly 1388 to 1351 BC, Thutmose IV, and Psamtik II. And I've never heard this one. Apries? I haven't heard this one before.
But no, that one's unusual. I mean, we normally hear about well-known ones.
Yep. So Amenhotep I've heard of. Thutmose, Thutmose I've heard of. Psamtik I've heard of, but Apries I've not. So it reigned from 589 to 570 BC. There is more. They have pictures of it posted. And this is the problem that I have with the fact that we don't know what we don't know. And we align modern perception with the temporal and cultural guidance of modern society. And so we go, oh, well, their name is there, so they must have built it. But that's not necessarily true.
Or this looks like a spoon because that's what our current day spoons look like, or whatever it is. Yeah. And then it might be something else entirely.
And then 25 years later, they find something that adjusts it, which is fine. But meanwhile, there are millions of people that have gone through their entire 25 years being told one thing, and it becomes factually wrong, falls off their radar. They tell people what they think is the truth, and then they're corrected. Like, oh, well, no, the new knowledge is this. Well, Jesus. We've been led wrong so long.
Hello, Kitty.
Yeah. Too soon. Yeah, Hello Kitty, apparently. Okay, talk about non sequitur. So, Hello Kitty apparently is an 8-year-old girl, not a cat. And I said, well, I guess they're cosplaying as a cat because they've got whiskers and ears, cat ears.
I mean, everything about it screams cat, but...
Yeah, and I guess... somebody put together like a museum or something like that about this, and they were like vocally reprimanded. It is not a cat. It has never walked on 4 legs. It sits and stands and walks and acts like a human. But it's
because we know so many characters act exactly like the original.
So
how many cartoons have animals running around versus standing up? Not a lot.
Hello Kitty is a furry. That's basically what's being announced. Hello Kitty is a furry. Let's move on before we have to change the name of the show again. So the next article is over in Wanted. Tesla is now selling karaoke mics for your car, and I titled this "The Little White Tables of Tesla." So if you've been around ohmTown for a while, there's this adage here that if a shop has little white tables out in front of it with knickknacks and bric-a-brac, it's going under. Selling karaoke mics for your car has to be...
That's the equivalent for...
EVs.
EVs, thank you. I couldn't think of the name of it.
It's a big word. So Tesla has quietly launched a karaoke kit for its EVs dubbed karaoke mic. Nothing ever original. So buyers get 2 Tesla branded wireless mics, as well as a receiver, a storage bag, power and data cables. Notably, the kit is designed explicitly for the media apps in Tesla vehicles. In fact, it requires the company's 2024.26 firmware update. But be sure to put your car in karaoke mode, otherwise it won't be able to go through a car wash.
Maybe when you go through a car wash, you need to put it in karaoke mode.
cart before the horse kind of a thing. Yeah, chicken before the egg. So there you go. That's what these things look like. Wow, they look a lot like the mic that is right in front of me, but I don't know. It actually looks like that mic down. You know what? Never mind. I'm just not gonna. I'm doing like a cat thing, or a dog, squirrel. What? Roger Fingus over at pocket-lint.com put the article together. Do me a favor, go to pocketlint.com and tell me. I think it's a holding page, but it may actually go somewhere.
It looks like it's a blog. The last time it was used was in 2009.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, pocket-lint.com is where you want to go for this article about Karaoke Mic, a Tesla branded karaoke kit for its EVs. The kit costs $215 in the US, although Tesla says it won't ship the product to Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands, because they don't exist. They're fictional additions to the continental United States, the contiguous United States. I'm sure somebody's actually believing that. To check if the car is compatible, you'll need to navigate to software, additional vehicle information on your dash, and then ask yourself why. Anyway, at the moment, for example, you can get a $300 phone charger based on the Cybertruck, or drinking cups ranging from mugs to liquor glasses. The most expensive novelty is the $1,650 Cyber Quad, essentially a 10-mile-per-hour ATV for kids. For a brief time, Musk's Boring Company was offering a short-range flamethrower.
That's what you definitely want kids running around with.
It's all like bric-a-brac, like pick-me, bro kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual.
Fanboy.
I don't know. Maybe they could focus on their cars.
Yeah. How about increase the range, lower the price, increase the quality, break out a sander and edge, like sand down the sharp edges on the fever dream that is the Cybertruck. Waterproof it, maybe, so that it's not. So, honest to God, I've seen more Teslas dead on the side of the road than I've seen in motion, in person. And for where ohmTown exists, that's saying a lot.
That's not good advertising. Right. I mean, if you see Teslas frequently, that's a lot of data to pull from.
I've seen more Rivians driving around, but they've been around longer. But anyway.
Oh, I actually thought they came out after Tesla.
Well, after Tesla, but not Cybertrucks. Cybertrucks are really new. But
right.
There's a whole subreddit dedicated to Cyberstuck. So you can look that one up on your own. Moving on. Next article is over in Non Sequitur News. 22 details you might have missed during the Paris 2024 opening ceremony. I won't be able to go through all of these. I don't know how many are actually listed in here. When I click the link, go over to the source. It's over at businessinsider.com, Amory Rose. And since we're about halfway through the show, to get today's Non Sequitur News, you hit exclamation point NSN over on Twitch. You'll be able to get the show notes on YouTube and in the podcast later today, but I try to get them done in between shows, but we've got 6 shows that I got to do today. But that'll give you all of the links for today's show. And if you want all of the show note commands so that you can get it from the other or all 7 of our shows, there you go, exclamation point show notes. And if you want to get the podcast form, you can do exclamation point pod. Now, only Reality Hacker and Non Sequitur News are up to date in the podcast because we post them live. Like today is when the others will go live. Actually, that's not true. They're not going to post until tomorrow. We're going to stick to our normal schedule for distribution. That way people who are expecting it on the Sunday night get it on Sunday. That said, let's talk about these 22 details that we might have missed. Let's hope that they don't actually say one of them until we get to the article, which is just after this one. We're kind of heavy on Olympic. Olympics.
It's one of the major events going on right now, so I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. So first off, it's in Paris. Several allusions to famous French works of art, including Les Miserables. The bells of Notre Dame were rung for the first time since the destructive fire in 2019.
Well, that's a neat fact, and I'm surprised. I wonder if it's been ready, and they're like, no, we're waiting until the Olympics.
Yeah, really. There's somebody with a hammer, like, just waiting. They probably could have auctioned that off and made some serious change.
Absolutely.
That would have been amazing. I wonder if they actually did that, and nobody's really talking about it. If not, right. They missed an opportunity that isn't going to come again for 25 years.
Or longer, right? Because it's really like the first. I mean, I don't know if the bells had to be redone or whatever. Like, this might be the first time they're rung. Well, and it's on the Olympics.
Yeah, since the fire. Yeah. So, what's the combination? That would have been amazing. So, the ceremony opened with a reference to the French Revolution. The Parade of Nations took place right on the river Seine. Let's see. They have a bunch of stuff. Lady Gaga paid tribute to an iconic French performance style. Was that? Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like it.
Yeah, what do they call that? I know cabaret, right? I thought that's what they call it. The feather dance. Yeah, I don't know. Simone Biles wasn't at the opening ceremony, but her family was. Whoops. Snoop Dogg actually carried the torch. Louis Vuitton cases will be featured throughout the games. I think that they should punt that, but that's okay. It's French. So, each one of this year's Olympic medals contains a sliver of the Eiffel Tower. That was a new one that I learned recently as well.
Yeah, I think that's unique.
It's a pretty cool design too. I like it. That's actually, and the bronze looks really nice.
Mm-hmm.
It looks much more copper than bronze, but that's okay. And there's 18 more. I won't be able to go through all 20 of these. They talk about the bells being rung for the first time since 2019 when the cathedral was burned. Performers recreated an iconic scene from Les Miserables. Oof. Wow. Marie Antoinette was there in sort of a ceremony almost got a little not safe for work. Really? All right. And so on. But I'm gonna jump down to
wait, I want to see that one with I think it was with Ethiopia. Right there.
All 58 of Ethiopia's Olympic medals are for track and field. So as the Ethiopian delegates and athletes sailed down the Seine, the U.S. hosts on the NBC broadcast highlighted the team's unique Olympic record. All 58 of the country's medals have been won for track and field events.
It just looked like something out of the ordinary. I was curious what it was. I want to see them win something like,
luge.
I don't know, gymnastics or yeah. I was actually thinking of something from Cool Runnings, but
Cool Runnings, yeah.
But I'm like, well, it's the Summer Olympics, I guess.
That would be awesome. So, Statue of Liberty made an appearance. Apparently, not the one from Times Square.
Oh, right. In the character.
Statues of women appeared on the Seine during the Equalite section. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Anyway, there's quite a bit more, but I want to jump to the next article because I said kind of indicative of modern events. According to reports, the Olympic flag was raised upside down in opening ceremonies.
Okay. Do you think, how many people had the job of doing something with the flag?
Flag bearer had one job and inverted it. So Tom Morgan over at The Telegraph put the article together. In the land of the tricolor, the Paris 2024 opening ceremony appropriately gave us not one blunder, but three, like raising the Olympic flag upside down, which...
And I don't know if the other ones are in other articles, so if they are, you may want to skip that. But
yeah, there are others. I don't know if it's in the same thing as well, but I wanted to... The timing's ruined, but I'll still make the joke. See, if this would have been done in Australia, it would have been okay.
You know, I mean, why didn't they wait? Because Australia is hosting one of the upcoming Olympics, I think, like the second one from now.
Yeah, so no formal apology as yet to the family of Coubertin, Pierre de Coubertin. The flag had been raised at the Trocadero opposite the Eiffel Tower after an elaborate scene. There's more. There's a lot to the context of this, I suppose. But I don't know. And then there was a wardrobe malfunction, apparently.
Oh, I hadn't seen that
Oh,
one.
God. Yeah. Let's just say the family jewels were shown, apparently.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
That's quite a malfunction.
Royalty. So the next article, we'll just move on. The next article is over on the Warcrafters channel. Actors Union not happy about a GTA 6 strike exemption, but confirms it's in the contract. Insane, but it's there. Video game actors are on strike. The approximately 160,000 member SAG-AFTRA union says the major game makers have refused to include sufficient protections against generative AI in their contracts. The game makers disagree, and for now, parties are at an impasse. The strike means that union actors will not work on new games in production at a number of major studios until they can all agree on a new contract. Take-Two Interactive, parent company of Rockstar, is one of the game makers being struck, but Grand Theft Auto 6, a game we expect to feature many gigs worth of dialogue, apparently has an exemption. The SAG-AFTRA strike technically only applies to recently started projects, which means GTA 6 is exempt. Tyler Wilde at PCGamer.com put this article together. I don't know if it's the timing alone or if it's in the contract, because the implication from the snippet and from the preceding segment basically suggests that it's in the contract. But maybe it's a timing thing. So, in an FAQ, SAG-AFTRA explains that some companies have games that cannot be struck due to certain contract terms, and so it is easier to think about the strike in terms of struck games as opposed to struck companies. In a report on Aftermath, SAG-AFTRA Chief Contracts Officer Ray Rodriguez said that the union is obviously not happy about the GTA 6 exemption, but affirmed that the rule about already in development games exists, saying it was bargained into a legacy agreement created before the SAG-AFTRA unions merged. When did they merge?
That's quite a while ago, isn't it?
I thought so. So the contract for... Wow, what a blanket contract.
I mean, isn't that... Okay, when they merged, that was... The last element to merge was in 2016, but there was a vote for merger in 2012.
So as far back as 2012,
like a really long time. Yeah.
Huh, interesting. So it's language that the merged union basically inherited that I think is insane, said Rodriguez, but it's there. Yeah, it's like invalidating old laws. You have to go back, audit for appropriateness, but no law actually gets removed until there's some cause of action that leads to its removal. They don't just, somebody doesn't wake up one day and go, oh, we don't need this, because some goober is going to walk their cow down Main Street. That's why.
Yes, exactly. On a Thursday or something.
Right. Yeah. And you can't buy alcohol on Sunday in some places because archaic things. So the goal of the strike is to formalize fair compensation and right of informed consent for the AI use of actors' faces, voices, bodies, said SAG-AFTRA National Executive Director Duncan Crabtree, Ireland, in a statement this week. And we've talked about this here before, that we think it's rather absurd that just because somebody was contracted for a game, suddenly they can do whatever the hell they want to with their voice, face, likeness, etc. I think it's absurd. Absurd. When the game is done, the agreement is done, you can't touch my brand, my identity. I will defend that as hard and fast as I defend the idea that AI and generative works is nothing more than a tool, and that I don't think that anybody should be able to say, well, this AI is this person. I don't think that you should be allowed to say, as a part of your business operation, this sounds like this person, because you're trading on the reputation, the provenance, the goodwill of the voice actor that it supposedly sounds like, not the provenance of that work itself. So I'm adamant about that. I think that it's going to be damn near impossible to shift me from that platform. So if you create a musical work, don't say that it sounds like Snoop Dogg. Why? Because it isn't.
Exactly. It can sound like him, but it doesn't have to be labeled as him,
right,
or modeled after him.
Right. If other people make that determination, fine. And you can, and when they ask, hey, did Snoop Dogg do this? You have to say no. You have to, otherwise it's fraud. And I would love for Snoop Dogg to come after you. But just because it happens to sound like Snoop Dogg.
You think it'd be a real relaxed
yeah, the litigation is like,
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Show up if you want to.
Yeah. Show up, we'll spark one up. We'll come to an agreement. You don't use my likeness. I don't set you on fire in the stage. Anyway, professionally, here's the technical terminology for this. If you're going to use AI, don't be a dumbass. Moving on. The last article for Non Sequitur News today is over in the Continuity Report, which again is one of our shows. Writers' earnings fell $600 million due to strike and industry contraction, WGA says. This is what we said was going to happen.
Exactly.
So TV and film writer earnings fell $603 million last year, or about 32%. At the end of the peak TV coincided with a 148-day strike by the Writers Guild of America. Writers' earnings reported for dues purposes dropped $1.29 billion in 2023. Adjusted for inflation, that's the lowest level since the writers' previous strike, I believe it's going to say. Gene Mattis over at Variety.com put the article together. Yeah, the writer strike in 2007, 2008. So employment also fell by 19.5% to 5,501 working writers, the lowest number since 2014. So a decade of growth wiped out, not because it's not the writers union. It's not the union's fault. It's the greed of who hires them. It's their fault because they have record freaking profits, live in lavish houses, have tons of money and savings and life safety. But because people want to pursue something that they're passionate about, i.e. writing, they're at the whim of somebody hiring them, which again, people can hire whoever they want to, but because they want irrational margins instead of quality and giving opportunity, there could be, again, $603 million in earnings could have been doled out to fresh blood who thinks differently, writes passionately, writes well, and now they're going to have to grind that much harder to try and get a grip. And that's the thing that really drives me nuts. It's sociopathic. Instead of using the people, they're going to go, well, it's AI's fault. Well, no, it's not AI's fault, because you can hire writers. Go hire writers. TV business shrank 14% from 600 shows to 516 in 2023. And now
we did
they're going
hear
to strike
some
again.
instances of like very highly paid actors who actually forfeited their salary so that they could pay writers during the strike, which I thought was a good move.
Yeah, I agree. At least some of the money should have gone. But see, the thing is, it shouldn't depend on goodwill.
No, it really shouldn't. I just mean people stepped up under the circumstances. They shouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't excuse whatever the studios were doing or not doing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they think that they can execute on nothing. So without the writers, there is nothing to execute on, and you actually see it. But then there is this burden. They have to eventually, either the union cracks or they leave and go and do something else. And if they leave and go somewhere else, then they can't focus on the writing, which means that they are basically phasing themselves out of the industry. So they're no longer a writer. So following the previous strike, which lasted 100 days, the Guild reported a 15% decline in overall earnings for 2008. A dramatic 32% drop for 2023 will likely be revised next year to show a somewhat smaller decline owing to a lag in dues reporting. So it might bounce back. So in nominal terms, writer earnings set a record in 2022 at $1.89 billion adjusted for inflation. The peak was in 2019. But now in 2023, it declined. In addition to the regular earnings, writers received just shy of $600 million in residuals in 2023, a 3.5% gain from 2022. So where are the real losses here if the writers are making this, that, and the other? It's contracting. Not as many writers are employed.
Exactly. I mean, and I assume they didn't count on the books as employed during the strike, right? Because they weren't getting paid, etc.
Yeah. And a lot of this apparently is the profits and stuff come from sales and from plays. And so people aren't buying DVDs anymore. They're just streaming. They're not purchasing movies anymore. They're just streaming. And those streams don't count at the same ratio as a sale. So it's pretty interesting. But the residuals, I think, that's something that needs to be renegotiated. And in the process of that renegotiation, during the strikes, on the other side of it, they raise the rates for the consumer instead of reducing the margin, right? So the margin stays the same. More money goes to the various parties, including the investors. And the consumer is the one that's footing the bill instead of monitoring greed in society. But greed is good, apparently. Thank you.
Well, I mean, that seems to be a mantra.
True. So there's now another WGA. Well, there's a SAG-AFTRA strike, not WGA. There's a SAG-AFTRA strike now against video games.
Right. This is the video game company one, right?
Yeah. But this article is about the Writers Guild.
Yes, but it could be video games in the future.
Sure.
Or video game creators.
Yeah, the writers there too. So everybody's going to be striking. Everybody was striking. It's like Kung Fu Fighting. That.
Yes, exactly. I caught the tune.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for non sequitur news for July 27th, 2024. So I am going to turn it off and on again and bring us back to the front page of ohmTown.com. where you can see there's already some new news, like how to watch the Olympic gymnastics live online, or an article about Jim Carrey and Dwayne Johnson, in a horror movie called Witchboard that's being remade. Okay. Anyway, I'm AirWatt, and that's the visualizer that has very few synaptic.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as active today for some reason.
Well, I'll have to recalibrate it. I mean, we know that your representation here is muted compared to what it usually is, but
it must be reflective of my processing power today.
Need some more downtime. We'll stick some more RAM in you.
Well, good afternoon, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Non-Sequitur News.
I am going to reset, and we will do another show. It's probably going to be Wanted. Yeah, because I can do them in any order today, but I think I'll do them in the order that we normally do them on Sundays now, which is Reality Hacker and then Wanted. I did Reality Hacker yesterday along with the Sentient AI, but I think the Sentient AI is going to be on location with a task that only a Sentient AI from the future can do. So, cheers, everybody. See you in a little bit. I got your SAG-AFTRA.